What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Great Leap Forward in the neighborhood. Great Leap Forward is the name of the second five-year plan in the People's Republic of China, PRC, which was enforced from 1958 to 1962. It was a great economic and social campaign that was not so much about making the Chinese rich as it was about making the world, including the Chinese themselves, believe that their Communist Party was leading the country in the right direction. It was important to show that independence was a good thing, and independence from the capitalists was wonderful. China's southern neighbor, Vietnam, became jealous of the fact that the Chinese could afford to move into a bright future by leaps and bounds. The situation in Vietnam at that time was not the most pleasant. The First Indochina War had just died down, during which Vietnam won its independence and ceased to be a colony of France, and the country itself was divided along the Benghai River into two halves, northern and southern. And although back in the summer of 1954 the Geneva Accords recognized the independence of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, everyone was waiting for free and general elections, which were required to unite the territory to consolidate the freedom of Vietnam. The U.S. really did not want another communist country in the region, and everyone probably remembers how that turned out in the 1960s. We will not delve into these historical twists and turns, but it is important to understand why North Vietnam needed its own automobile. In the late 1950s, it was a matter of prestige and would have had great propaganda value. Meanwhile, the Great Leap Forward of the Chinese was quite successful. It was at this time that a large number of automobile enterprises appeared in the country, and some of them are still operating today. And it was 1958 that became the most successful year for the Chinese automobile industry. On March 10, 1958, the first truck with carrying capacity of 2.5 tons Eugene, stepped forward. A copy of our GAZ-21 came out of the factory in Nanjing. In June 1958, the company Nanjing Automobile Works was established, and then factories were built throughout the country, in Nanjing. Today Nanjing Automobile Corporation, Shanghai, today Shanghai Automotive Industry Corporation, Jinan, and Beijing, today is Beijing Automotive Industry Holding Corporation. Let's be honest, the Vietnamese had something to envy. The experience of China had to be urgently extended to North, Communist, Vietnam. The first pancake, of course, being a colony is not a great joy. But it was France that gave Vietnam the opportunity to get acquainted with the automobile. Peugeots and Citroëns appeared in this country in 1920s, so the Vietnamese had some automobile experience. Of course, it was repairing cars, not building them. The First Indochina War would not have been possible without vehicles either. And the French had plenty of vehicles. The Vietnamese had the courage and skill to take these vehicles captive, repair them, and fight with them against the French. And since the military actions on the part of the independence fighters were much more successful than the French attempts to regain the colony, the trophy vehicles became more and more. And all of it had to be repaired somewhere. At this time, a large number of not-so-large businesses sprang up around the country to repair trophy vehicles. Interestingly, the first attempt to build something of their own was made back in 1950, when they built their own car from the wreckage of enemy cars, which they called Quoc T International. It is only a pity that it is more like a legend. There is no documentary evidence that this car really existed. However, there is a popularized myth that the country's leadership was so ashamed of this car that they decided not to tell anyone about it, and the only copy was simply destroyed. Whether this is true or not, no one knows. But something is known about the first passenger car of own design, which was produced in 1958. This pancake, the second in a row, turned out to be not so crumpled, although there are questions to it. From the world on a thread, the motorcycle factory Z-157 became the base for the future enterprise. Here they created a separate division, which was called Chan Thang Factory. Chan Thang translates as victory or triumph. However, neither victory nor triumph was achieved. This enterprise had to be established at a bad time. A long war, devastation, not quite certain international situation, all this significantly complicated the task. Take at least the material base. Where to get tooling, machine tools? All this had to be collected from all over the country. The situation with personnel was a little better. Although, as I have already said, there was experience in repairing machines during the war, but all these specialists were scattered in small enterprises, so it was necessary to select the best. We preferred to take those who had specialized education, which could be obtained in French institutions. As a result, it was possible to gather the staff of the plant, about 500 people. Initially, the plant was engaged in repair of old machines, then they tried to build their own, Vietnamese one. And here things covered with mysteries and riddles begin. In 1959, the magazine GAZ-21 published an article with the loud title, "The First Domestically Produced Car." It was about Vietnamese comrades who managed to produce their firstborn. They named it the same as the factory, Chan Thang. What kind of car was it? The ZR wrote, the first Vietnamese passenger car was named Triumph. By design, it has much in common with the Soviet car Volga. The Triumph has a 2.4-liter engine. The body is a 5-seater of load-bearing construction. With the exception of tires imported from abroad and 2 night bulbs for headlights, all other parts of the car are produced in the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. And, of course, the release of the first car outside the factory gates caused, as can be seen in the photo, the enthusiastic approval of the Vietnamese workers. And next to it, a picture that looks like a drawing. Oh, this diplomacy. In fact, this Chan Thang was our GAZ-21 with a 2.4-liter engine. With differences, of course. The plant manager at that time was Comrade Ho Man Kang, and the chief engineer was Comrade Vu Van Don. There is an interview with Ho Man Kang in which he touches a little on the history of this firstborn of the Vietnamese automobile industry. According to the factory manager, the raw material used to make this car was recycled French scrap metal left over from the war. Ho Man Kang admitted that this car is a clone of the 21st Volga. Yes, he had to work with body panels, and as a result Chan Thang looks more like a Chaika than a Volga, but inside it is a GAZ-21. Ho Man Kang admitted that the plant could not take apart the Volga down to the screws, make its own drawings and start its own production, due to lack of knowledge and technical capability. As a result, this first Vietnamese passenger car remained in a single copy, and began to slowly grow myths and legends. For example, there is a belief that the Chan Thang is based on the Renault Frégate rather than the GAZ-21. In fact, it isn't. Remember what they wrote in GAZ-21 about importing tires? It is quite likely that it was not just about tires, but about wheel assemblies. And certainly not about imports, but about using them on a particular car. They do look similar to the French ones, but Chan Thang is a Volga after all, not a Renault Frégate. Here's another myth that is difficult to explain. There is an old photograph of Ho Chi Minh looking at the fins of the marvelous Chan Thang. And in the same photo, another person is noted, Nguyen Man Kang. And it is strange, because the surname of the plant manager is not Nguyen at all, but Ho, the names Man and Kang coincide. Nevertheless, Vietnamese publications claim that the photo shows Comrade Nguyen. In Vietnam, the first name is always the surname, followed by 2 names. And they add, Nguyen Man Kang is a Vietnamese designer, inventor, and engineer known as Quasar Kang. In 1964, he designed another car called Quasar, which was produced by the British company Unipower. Now that's an interesting one. Indeed, Nguyen Man Kang, aka Quasar Kang, is a very famous designer and constructor, and he actually had a hand in the very funny Quasar Unipower city car. In fact, it is a glass box on a mini chassis with a 1.1-litre engine and a 3-speed automatic transmission. It looks very wild, and nobody knows why it was produced from 1967 to 1969. But it was invented by the same Nguyen Man Kang, Quasar Kang. Quasar Unipower city car, his glass cube on wheels didn't really catch on, I can guess why, but Quasar Kang remained in history. In the future, he became a famous designer of inflatable furniture. It seems funny, but his company became one of the European leaders in this industry. Today, it is called Fugu Furniture and is based in France. And Quasar was also the popularizer of bamboo bicycles. It all seems pretty good, but something in this story doesn't add up. The photo with the car, Ho Chi Minh and Nguyen Quasar, was probably taken in late 1958, or very early 1959, but that's less likely. Quasar was born in 1934, so he must be 24 years old here. Well, let's say he was indeed very talented, and at that age he had already made a splash with Ho Chi Minh. But here's the trouble. Kvaza at the age of 15 was taken to Paris to study engineering at the National School of Bridges and Roads. He studied there until 1958, and in 1957 he married a French woman, but he didn't get to Vietnam until shortly before his death in 2016. Where did he come from in the photo with Ho Chi Minh? There is no answer to that question. However, there is an assumption that this is another element of propaganda. Look what kind of people sculpted Chan Thang. Quasar Uni-Power City car, as I said before, this car was the only one left. What became of the factory? It was not possible to find out. There is no mention of it anymore. Most likely, the next war, difficult and protracted, ruined the already not the most advanced enterprise. There were never any serious attempts to build their own car in Vietnam, although the assembly of Citroën 2CV was mastered there right during the war. The modern car industry of Vietnam reminds something of North Korea, the same very bold attempts to copy something foreign and not to get badly burned. Sometimes it turns out funny. For example, the Vietnamese company VAN Fast has largely original designs, and largely non-original, taken from BMW. Well, it is understandable. The founder of this company, Pham Nhat Vuong, once graduated from the Russian State University of Geological Exploration in Moscow, and this obliges a lot. We will consider VAN Fast products sometime next time. For today, Vietnam is enough for now. We thank for help in finding information Andrew Trubin, the head of the public cars from DPRK and other exotic countries. In conclusion, the story of the Vietnamese clone of the GAZ-21, known as Chan Thang, is a fascinating yet somber chapter in automotive history. This mysterious car not only reflects the ingenuity and resilience of Vietnamese engineers but also serves as a reminder of the complex socio-political landscape of its time. From its controversial origins to its role in the broader narrative of Vietnam's industrial development, Chan Thang stands as a symbol of both innovation and the shadows of history. As we continue to explore the legacy of such vehicles, we gain a deeper understanding of the cultural and historical contexts that shape our world today. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past.